positions are going to be absolutely crucial for defining where everyone finishes tomorrow, because it is tight, it is narrow out there at this new venue, and overtaking hotspots are going to be fairly few and far between. So place on the grid, ideally on the first row or two, is going to take on extra significance. You can see from some of the fans in the grandstands just there that the wind looks as though it has picked up a little bit this afternoon. It was nice and calm this morning. Here in this part of Hungary, we're about 1.5 hours away from the capital city of Budapest. But looking slightly blustery out there right now.
We saw yesterday, as Neil mentioned, it was really buffeting the riders around here in Moto2. The riders saying that particularly in the second sector, the fast changes direction through turns 6 and 7 and 8. That's where the wind was really catching them. And it is a circuit that's quite flat and quite wide open to the elements too, so the wind really can whip up around this circuit and perhaps catch you in the wrong part of the racetrack, and you might feel like you're heading to some of these corners doing very little wrong. If you get caught by a gust of wind, there's very little you can do about it. Here's your podium finisher from last weekend in Austria. Chelsea Vietti, his customary Red Bull Ring podium. And it doesn't certainly look as if we're going to see the same sort of record for him around Balaton Park. He has looked all at sea so far this weekend. It's been a very good weekend so far, though, for the Red Bull KTM IO squad. Colin Baez looked like one of the front runners. He's through the Q2, and there's every chance that Danny Munoz could join him. He's looked good also so far this weekend. Let's get an update from the IO squad from Nicky Io, who's with his lookalike, Elliot York from pit lane.
Yeah, good to speak to Nicky. Danny Munoz replacing Dennis, of course, and he's looked really good. He's looking like a strong contender for Q2. How's he settled back into the team?
Yeah, to be honest, I think we've made some great progress in general in our team in Moto2 in the last few races. Obviously Dennis is injured and we're missing him, but we're still pleased with the performance of both riders, especially here and also in Austria. And yeah, Danny has been a very nice surprise, let's say. We all seem to forget that he's still only 19 years old, so he's not very experienced in general. So for me, he's been quite impressive, and Colin, of course, he's done a great step as well in the last races.
What is the step that Colin has made? As you say, a really good weekend last time out in Austria, and he's straight into Q2 again this weekend. What's the improvement that he's made on the bike or within himself?
I think it's just, it's all about time. Like every weekend he's getting more experience with the team, with the bike, generally how to ride a Moto2 bike, getting more confidence. So, it's all just starting to, all the pieces in the puzzle are starting to go into places now. So yeah, it's great improvement.
Have you got an update on Denise? When can we expect the Turk back on the bike?
Obviously it's difficult to say yet. I mean, it was quite a big injury, and we have to go a little bit week by week, but I would say earliest in Motegi, but yeah, like I said, we have to go week by week.
And when can we expect announcements on potential future as well? Nicky, are you waiting for other things to happen with like Jose Antonio potentially moving up? What's the latest?
Well, nothing new to say at the moment, but we will announce when it's the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much to both Elliot down there in pit lane and to Nicholas Io, team boss of the Io Red Bull KTM squad. And as we previously mentioned, it could be on for a double good result here, even if one of the riders, the full-time riders, is out injured, because Danny Munoz has been very impressive indeed, and his recent performances have actually been attracting the attention of one or two team bosses that are on the lookout for a new addition to their team in 2026. I've heard his name linked potentially to Italtrans next year to replace the outgoing Diogo Moreira. Looks as though the Brazilian is heading up to MotoGP with LCR Honda, and Danny Munoz could be a potential replacement, which would be a very fine seat for him to get his hands on. And you have to remember, he is still a teenager. Rider the number 17, that is the second name on the graphics on the left-hand side of your screen. Let's see if he can get through this session. We'll be up against it because Aaron Canet, as was previously mentioned, is in here. Joe Roberts is in here as well. Managed to catch up with Joe's dad just over the lunch break, and was saying that it is a bit of a struggle, and Joe's been struggling to find a bit of rhythm here. Just says that there's no real flow to this circuit. It's once you get up to speed, you're kind of breaking down into another low-speed hairpin again, and he feels maybe, as Canet has a bit of a bobble just there through one off the chicanes. was saying that Joe's slightly bigger and taller frame than, let's say, the average Moto2 rider. It's maybe just having a little bit of difficulty changing the bike through the fast change of direction in the chicanes compared to some of the other names that he's coming up against. So it has been a bit of a struggle for the American. The second week in succession that he's not been quite at his best.
Fastest rider so far then on these initial runs is on to Van den Gorberg, 1:41.532. That's around about 0.3 of a second quicker than he went yesterday. Fastest lap time of the weekend though has been set by Aaron Canet, which might sound like an odd thing to say given he's in qualifying one, but of course the automatic Q2 qualifiers are dictated or decided on a Friday afternoon now. That sole practice session, which Aaron Canet was not particularly stellar in, is 1:40.5 set in the untimed free practice 2 session this morning. Canet's currently in 6th place then, and you have to go all the way back to 2020 for the last time Aaron Canet did not make a qualifying 2 session in Moto2.
That is an impressive stat right there, Lewis. And big bobble that he had through the chicane obviously cost him last time around. He'll have another go, and we're just looking at our timing screens. Canet not currently fastest through split number 1, so I'm not sure if he got spooked ever so slightly. He has rolled out of his current lap time, but decent early run this from Zonta van der Gorberg, who, like many riders, is trying to impress potential new teams. Zonta, I think, was saying that might be leaving RW Racing at the end of the year, is on the lookout for a new ride and goes fastest yet again with the 41.296, so a decent time from the Dutchman.
He's dominating this Q1 session at the moment as Jorge Navarro cuts his advantage down to 1/4 of a second. The forward chassis working pretty nicely, it has to be said, around this circuit so far. We already have Alex and Scridge automatically through to qualifying 2, and at the moment Navarro, of course, to join in. Bouncers now up in a second on a 41.3. That compares to a 41.9 than he did this time yesterday in practice. So frantic at the moment with one rider heading through to qualifying 2, but they would dearly want both.
Yeah, they really would. Balthus was absolutely putting his bike on its nose into turn 1 there, but still managed to get it turned and squirted it out towards turn number 2. As we see a replay of this moment for Aaron Canet. It was in the turn 12, turn 13 chicane where you can see his left leg coming off. I'm not sure if the rear tyre was just coming around ever so slightly there, but certainly not an ideal moment for Canet. I mean, take his last run of FP2 out of this weekend, Lewis, and he's looked completely lost. He's looked way, way off it. And you would sort of be sounding the alarm bells round about now, but I guess we know that he can do it because we saw it earlier today. When he puts his mind to it, when he has a clear run, he can set a seriously quick time, but it's not come to him yet.
Yeah, the reason that the alarm bells might be potentially sounding is because his 2 chief championship rivals are both on red hot form this weekend. Manuel Gonzalez and Diogo Moreira, both in qualifying 2 and certainly well favoured to challenge for pole position in around about 25 minutes or so from now. Van den Gorberg continues to lower his own benchmark time down now to a 41.1. His advantage now back up to 2/10 over Barry Balthus. Navarro third from Arena. So comes Munoz as he now pulls himself into the top 4. Really fine job being done here by the number 17. Squeezes ahead of Navarro and Arenas, and proving more than an able deputy at the moment for Denis Sunchu.
Yeah, impressive stuff from Danny Munoz. Impressive stuff from Zonta van der Gorberg. He's improved by over half a second from his previous fastest lap around this Hungarian circuit. So he's made a big step forward in Q1 here. As we have a bit of a breather midway through this session. As Balthus comes in, Aaron Canet prepares to go back out. Well, could be one of his most important runs of the entire season. As we previously mentioned, if you qualify outside the top 18, you don't make it into Q2, then, well, your chances of a decent result will definitely be over. Canet, well, we were saying earlier today that it might be a bit of a damage limitation job here this weekend, but let's see what he can produce in these final 7 minutes before we start saying things like that. He has brought a weekend back from the brink in previous circumstances before, this year as well. And maybe Canet can do something similar in the 6 minutes to come.
Yeah, the other riders continuing to step it up at the moment. Tony Arbolino, I guess, will be one down in 8th place. His teammate Ethan Aguilar is already into qualifying too. That's Danny Munoz taking the shortcut through the chicanes of 9 and 10. Onto the, I'm going to call it the back straight. It's not long enough really to be called the back straight, but the little short squirts up to turn 12 out of 11. Long lap penalty look there on the outside of the corner. As Munoz now tackles turn 1, which is certainly one of the biggest stops on this Balaton Park circuit, which is certainly heavy on heavy braking. The braking zone into turn 1 and turn 5 perhaps produced the best opportunities for overtaking.
As Celestino Vietti prepares for his final run, as Lewis was saying, it's been a disastrous weekend for the Italians so far. Just has not found his stride, not found his rhythm here at this venue. And a crash fairly early into FP1 certainly hindered his progress and deprived him of some crucial track time when it was really necessary. And he's just been behind the curveball since then, unfortunately. Provided it was up there fighting for victory just 6 days ago in Austria, fighting for pole position as well, but he has looked well off the pace right the way through this weekend. So Vietti will be looking at an end to his recent run of finishing inside the top 5 in the last 3 races. That one will certainly be coming to an end if he doesn't make some rapid improvements here.
Munoz is heading towards the end of a lap, which could be ahead of Baltas here and safeguard his place in the top 4. We pick up the 17 now, rounding the left-hander of 14, which is going to be particularly tough on the tyres tomorrow, although Pirelli have been a little conservative with their tyre selections for this weekend. They, of course, do currently supply the World Superbike and Supersport Championships, so they do have some prior data, but understandably didn't want to go too aggressive on the first Moto2 and Moto3 outing here. Munoz does indeed go up in the second place on a 1:41.232. Van den Gorberg currently sitting in the pits. I'm sure he will win again, but at the moment he's got an advantage of the best part of half a second back to Alvaro Arenas in 5th.
Yeah, it's a nice advantage to have, although it might not stand for too much longer as Kinet tows Joe Roberts and Tony Arbolino around. You can see that they're not on course to challenge the top time in this session so far as they come around the 180-degree hairpin at turn 11. This short little shoot-up then to turn number 12 into 13, and then we're coming round, continuing to go left through turn 14 and up towards the final chicane. As you can see with riders on the outside of the track, it has the potential to be a little bit messy in qualifying here if riders don't have their wits about them and get out of the way. We saw it a little bit in MotoGP practice yesterday afternoon with 1 or 2 riders becoming quite upset with some touring just up ahead. Kinet comes across the line and he goes fastest. That is an absolutely sensational final sector from Aaron Kinet. He pulled it back from the brink just there. A 1:41.138 is the new benchmark in this Q1 session, and Kinet once again showing that there is still life in the Fantic Racing Rider.
It's still life in Joe Roberts too, as he goes up into 4th place on a 1:41.377. Baltas out, so circuit might not necessarily suit Joe Roberts' preferred style, but he's putting his team to the moment and potentially pulling a Q2 appearance out of the back. Here's Sergio Garcia, who of course is riding a Calyx for the first time in the better part of 2 years, having spent last season on a Boscoscuro with some very good initial results. He goes into 11th place on a 42.0. He's normally to find 3/4 of a second if he's to make his way through to Q2.
Yeah, first time riding the Calyx with Pirelli tyres as well, which I guess is going to be a big adaptation for Sergio. This from Celestino Vietti. We're also seeing fast lap times coming in then for Joe Roberts and Barry Baltas, who currently finds himself in 5th. This would be so Celestino Vietti if he snuck through Q1 after showing almost nothing through the rest of the weekend. You can see he's lost a bit of time in sector number 3, and Kinet was super fast in this final sector. Let's see what Vietti can manage through these final series of lefts.
It's just as well as Van den Gorberg did go back out of the racetrack. He might go to the top 4 shortly. Vietti goes into 6th place. He still needs to find another 10.42 to get himself through into Q2. Q2, but it's the Roberts-Baltus train that we need to be keeping an eye on. Here they are. They're actually up behind Aaron Canet, who unwittingly might be about to tow a couple of riders to go past him in his qualifying session. Canet currently is roughly on target to match his best lap from a moment ago, but we are into the low 41s now with Baltus. 41 flat for him, goes a 10th clear of Canet. Roberts up ahead of Van den Gorbach now into 3rd place, and the Dutch teenager is now sitting rather precariously in 4th.
Yeah, not too much between Van den Gorbach in 4th and Danny Munoz in 5th. 400ths of a second to be precise. Albert Arenas, I don't think, is going to manage to challenge the top 4 with this lap time, seeing he's nearly 6/10 off through split number 3. Van den Gorbach is mustering some kind of response as he looks to absolutely solidify his spot in Q2 as that time goes away. And it has been a tough weekend for Albert Arenas. Unfortunately, the rider that finished 4th just 1 week ago in Austria really does not look as though he has it within himself to progress into the top 18 in qualifying.
Might prove a bridge too far for Danny Munoz in this session. He's been bumped out to 5th now and is just on to his final flying lap, but once Van den Gorbach on target to get himself into the 140s here if he can keep this lap going. We did see a 140.5 from Aaron Canet earlier on today. Van den Gorbach, his best lap time of the weekend is in the 41s. That has now changed to some tune. A 140.856 for Van den Gorbach. That is the thick end of a second quicker than he's been in any other session so far this weekend.
Yeah, super performance this from the Dutchman. You wonder whether seeing his compatriots, Colin Veyer has just given him an extra little push as well in this session. Veyer having one of his best Moto2 weekends to date so far. Canet had a bit of a bobble, I think, coming through turn 14, which has cost him a little bit in the 3rd sector. Crosses the line, improves in lap time, but not in position. So Canet remains in 3rd. Boyan Navarro jumps up into 5th, so decent time there for the Clint Forward Factory Racing star.
Yeah, only 25 thousandths of a second away from replacing Roberts in the top 4. He'd have to go a long way back, I suspect, to the last time 2 forwards made it through to Q2. Sadly, that will not be happening today. The rider who's just shown no potential at all in this session is the 75 of Albert Arenas, who's back in 10th place in this session. Was 8th in the World Championship, and confirmation on the eve of this Grand Prix that he's out of the Gresini team for next season to make way for Alonso Lopez and Sergio Garcia. We're on target here for by far and away the season's worst qualifying for Albert Arenas, who qualified down in 20th back in Austin, Texas. He's going to be starting, as it stands, down in 24th place.
Yeah, that would be nothing short of disastrous for Albert. Hasn't been outside the top 20 in qualifying all season long. As Gorbach just continues to circulate. Well, in the high 40s or the low 1 minute 41s. That's another high 40. That would have been good enough for the fastest time in this session, but 5 thousandths off his previous best. Celestino Vietti is going to be looking at a really ominous task tomorrow. Vietti 9th in this session. It is going to be 23rd on the grid for the Italian, which is really quite a shocking performance. And Canet looks as though the crisis is averted for now, Lewis. He's managed to book himself a spot in Q2 with the 2nd fastest time in Q1.
He remains the fastest rider of the weekend so far in terms of the fastest lap time we've seen, although in terms of our general running so far, you wouldn't say necessarily Aaron Canet has been the fastest at all times. But he is through to Q2. And from a fantic point of view, it's crisis averted. Both riders are through. Canet 2nd, Baltus 3rd. Van den Gorbach on a 40.8 tops the session, and a bit of a recovery and a rescue mission in some respects for Joe Roberts, I have to say, securing 4th place for the American racing team. A 141.1 for him. That's 7/10 quicker than he went in practice yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, good stuff. Good improvement from the American. He was 20th yesterday afternoon. He was down in 23rd earlier today. So Roberts, with that big old improvement, he got his tactics spot on as well, didn't he? He spotted that Aaron Canet would probably be the rider to sit behind and to maybe pick up 1 or 2 little tips on how to manage your way around this 4.0 kilometre Balaton Park circuit. So Roberts salvaging something from what was a pretty ordinary weekend before now. Barry Baltus doing the same. He'll be hopeful that he can follow the pattern from his previous two Q1 appearances when he went on to qualify on the front row of both the Sachsenring and Brno. Qualifying pole position actually in Czechia as well. So let's see what Baltas can do, whether he can build on this performance. There's been a lot of question marks surrounding Barry Baltas' future for 2026, but some rumours here this weekend saying that he could be staying put in Fantic Racing for another season. You'd have to say it's completely deserved.
A wonderful job this season. Could still get himself into the World Championship picture. Baltas, 45 points. He trails Manu Gonzalez. Just a beauty. Penny for his thoughts. 9th in that session. Some of the big names that are tying deep on the grid for tomorrow's Grand Prix. Arbolino 8th, Vietti 9th, and Arenas 10th in that session. Zonta Goldberg topped it, 148.56 for him. Sees him edge out the Fantic duo Aaron Canet and Barry Baltas. Joe Roberts 4th, and also through the Q2. Jorge Navarro missed out on taking the second of the two forwards into Q2 by just 25 thousandths of a second. Munoz 6th from Binder, Arbolino, Vietti, Arenas and Cooney. Unai Radre is being competitive this weekend. He'll start 12th or was 12th in that session, which will put him 26th on the grid. Sergio Garcia and Nakaran Atarat Ugapat will be next to him on the back row. So, Zonta Goldberg tops qualifying 1. Who's going to feature in the battle for pole position then? You'll get your answer in moments. It's a very good afternoon to you from Balaton Park. As you look into the distance at the wonderful Lake of Balaton. Our spectacular hotel is situated just on the banks of the lake. It's going to be tasting some qualifying joy in a moment. Moto2 Q2 moments away. With 18 riders scrapping it out for pole position. The Tissot Sprint in MotoGP, well that's less than an hour away now. 3 PM local time, 55 minutes or so from now. We will see 13 laps of MotoGP action around this brand new venue. The Moto2 World Championship, well, it's still led by Manu Gonzalez, 19 points his advantage over Aaron Canet. But so much of the off-track talk is around Manu for a different reason. Let's talk Manu Gonzalez and, of course, the Intact GP squad as a whole. As you take a look at your Q2 lineup, let's hear from Intact GP's Jürgen Linge speaking to us.
He certainly is, Jürgen. Great to speak to you. Just had Q1 and great to see Sergio back in Moto2. I'm sure it's been a pleasure to have him. How's he been feeling in your team this weekend?
He feels quite good, but it's not easy for him since 3 months not jumping on a Moto2 bike, and new team, new constructor and new racetrack for him. I think it's very difficult for him, but so far he did a good job. We cannot expect some wonders. Important is that he improved session by session, and that's he did. And we have quite good communication and some fun together, and we said already before we should not expect too much, but we want to give him this opportunity because we believe in him. He's a good rider, but as I said, Moto2 is super tight.
At the same time, it's sad to see Senna not here, of course, who's having a great season. What's the update on his injury and how long he's going to be out for?
Yeah, he's unfortunately he cannot take part, but we have to say we are lucky that the injury is not that serious, because it could be much worse, and we are quite sure in Catalonia he will be back, and we are really, we need him in the garage, and everybody's missing him, and we are happy when he's back.
That's good news to hopefully have Senna back as soon as possible. On Manu, how is he feeling? Looking strong again. Obviously a lot of talks around his future. How is he inside the box?
Oh, he's quite calm, and he never show what is inside him, but he's calm and focused, and he's really looking forward for the race tomorrow. We work a lot on the pace the last 2 days, so it doesn't matter what happens today in qualifying, you know the pace is good for tomorrow.
And on his future, I've got to ask, what is the latest? What can you tell us about Manu?
Things are changing every day, I think, but I think during the weekend we know it sure, but looks like he can stay with us.
Thank you, Jürgen.
You're welcome.
Thanks very much, Elliot. Thanks as well to Jürgen Ling. And it sounds as though there's many reasons to celebrate down in the intact GP box, because Manu Gonzalez, who's on your screen, championship leader in Moto2, has been the subject of a late approach from Yamaha to step up into MotoGP. I to believe that Manu's camp was approached back in Austria to see whether he could maybe step into Pramac next year. And Jürgen Ling understandably wanted everything to be cleared up as soon as possible and said, need to do it by this weekend. From what Jürgen was saying, it doesn't sound as though Manu will be leaving. That could be really good news for all Australian fans out there, and a certain Jack Miller.
Jack Miller, the direct competition, it would appear, to Manu Gonzalez for a place in MotoGP next season at the Prima Pramac Yamaha squad. Another Moto2 talent who looks set to be MotoGP bound, although it looks like this will come next year in the form of Diogo Moreira. So much speculation linking the Brazilian with a place at the LCR Honda MotoGP team for next season, and that one certainly does feel like there is no smoke without fire. Moreira and Manu Gonzalez have looked the two classes of the field in Moto2 so far this weekend. Topped a session apiece yesterday on Friday. In fact, if you look at the 3 practice sessions we've had so far, the top 3 in the World Championship have topped a session apiece. And with Aaron Canet coming through qualifying 1, all 3 of them are in the battle for pole position. But certainly looking at the layout and looking at the evidence of the sessions we've seen so far this weekend, Neil, the Austrian Grand Prix winner Moreira at this track looks like it's right up his alley.
Yeah, it really does. Diogo Moreira has been in hot form right the way through. And we'll get on to some of the pace that he was able to show yesterday, also this morning. But yeah, Moreira looking very, very good. Challenge for a second straight victory after his second career victory last weekend in Austria. Been a bit of a troubled time as of late for the Mark VDS team. Jake Dixon had just a nightmare in Austria, qualified 20th, finished 20th. And Philip Salac didn't fare a great deal better. He was punished for bad qualifying performance on Saturday a week ago, which wasn't anything to do with him. It was a bit of a technical issue that held him back. But Salac, it has to be said, has been consistently toward the front in all 3 sessions so far. He was second at the end of play yesterday and 7th earlier today. So looking decent, this Salac. Maybe a bit of an outside shot for the front row. I think more than anything, he'll be looking for just a clear and clean session, because he's had great potential in the last couple of months coming into Saturday afternoon qualifying. And yeah, then it maybe didn't quite pan out as he would have imagined.
The potential certainly has been there for Salac so far this weekend in what is not, of course, a home Grand Prix for Salac. That came a couple of rounds ago in Brno, but this is maybe the next best thing. Pretty close to his home in Finland. Czechia, should I say, of course. 13 minutes then of this Q2 session to be completed. And it does feel like a shootout between Moreira and Gonzalez, but I have to say that pole position has been rather difficult to predict as of late. Gonzalez has only had 1 pole position in the last 4 Grand Prix. Moreira, after those run of 3 consecutive pole positions, hasn't been on pole position since. And Gonzalez, of course, having topped qualifying last weekend, had to drop back a row on the grid due to his 3-place grid penalty. At least he starts on a level playing field this time.
Gonzalez already in the groove here. Just looking at FP2 earlier today, there were 4 riders that stood out that did long kind of mini race simulations over 16 to 18 laps. A couple of them stood out. Diogo Moreira, as we were mentioning, has had really good rhythm right the way through this weekend. On his 16th lap of his race simulation, he was able to do 1 minute 40.9, which is a very competitive time to be setting at that advanced stage. Keep an eye out for his teammate Adrian Huertas, who has been having his best weekend of the year comfortably in Moto2 this weekend. On his 12th lap of his race simulation, he was able to do a 140.8. And then watch out for the Aspar duo. David Alonso, Dani Holgado were both fighting for victory 1 week ago in Austria. And both look capable of maybe being in the podium fight tomorrow as well. They did race simulations, and on their 18th laps, Alonso did a 140.0. and Holgado 141.1. So, yeah, fair to say that all four of those riders could well be in the podium fight tomorrow.
However strong your race rhythm is, though, you need to get yourself a sensible group position, and that feels particularly important around a circuit such as this. Yes, there are 17 corners, but it already appears to be quite a troublesome track to overtake cleanly on. So getting on the front two rows of the grid is so important. And a lap time in the 140s, you feel there's a necessity here to be on pole position. Amanda Gonzalez has certainly achieved that, a 140.582 straight out of the box for Manu Gonzalez. That's just 100th of a second shy of Canet's lap record earlier on this morning.
Yeah, Gonzalez right in the zone from the off. Impressive stuff from him. Barry Baltus is only able to get within 0.3 of a second of his time, and he had just been on track for 15 minutes previously. Sensational stuff yet again from Manu Gonzalez, and you feel he might have a bit of a point to prove this weekend, considering what happened last time out in Austria.
Here comes Canet then, who is on a particularly special lap at the moment. In many respects, he might feel some of the hard work is already done, just getting himself into this Q2 session. Alonso's already exceeded track limits and backed on this lap, so we haven't seen anything representative from him just yet. Moreira sets his first representative lap of the afternoon, and he's straight up onto the front row on the 141.0. Gonzalez, though, some 0.4 of a second clear after that very first run of the session, and at that time will take some beating.
Yeah, it really will. We've only seen one lap time that's been faster than that in Moto2 all weekend long. Joe Roberts is taking a bit of a breather before heading out in his Q2 section after coming through Q1, probably also rationing his rear tires for this session as well. So Gonzalez is 40.5, the time to aim at. He is on another quick one right now. In fact, he is not. He is a little bit slower here, as we see a couple of other names vie to get somewhere on a par with him, but to be honest, no one is able to get really anywhere near Gonzalez's time so far, coming through sectors 2 and 3.
Goldberg up into 4th place, backing up what we saw from him in qualifying 1. In sub 141 in Q1, he's on the cusp of the 140s once again here in this session. So Toda and Vaya next to him on the second row of the grid. Once again, as we've seen in Moto3, the rookies certainly are standing up around this Balaton Park circuit, which is brand new to everyone, even if a couple of riders did do some track day experience here in the not too distant past. Canet now tackles the final corner, turn 17, which leads us on to the start-finish straight. Finish line is just about to come across now, and Canet very briefly went onto the front row of the grid. Philip Salac replaces him, and perhaps he is going to get over his Saturday demons today.
Yeah, decent stuff from Salac. I'm sure he sighed, or he breathed a huge sigh of relief as he came across the line and saw that he went up into second position. No improvement there from Diogo Moreira last time around. He remains in the middle of the provisional second row. We're going to see a bit of a moment here for the Brazilian. Coming round turn 4 this is. Oh, and he has a big rear end slide coming out of there onto the back straight. Very lucky that he managed to keep that rubber side down, but up and out of the seat. No wonder he didn't improve that last time around. As Livio Suppo looks on from the Italtrans box.
He's just lit up the first sector, has Diogo Moreira, but he's been told to come back into the pit, so we perhaps won't see Moreira complete this. Well, so far, seriously fast lap. Ethan Guevara has also put in a strong first sector. He's far from 100% fit, by the way, after losing his hand last weekend in Austria. Moreira is still, incidentally, setting potential pole position sector times, but if the team information is correct, he's not going to be completing this lap.
Yeah, Moreira is 1/10 of a second up, as it's just come up on your screens just now. So will he maybe ignore some of the messages coming from his team and continue round, because he is on for pole position and a new lap record at this Balaton Park.
As long as he's running out of fuel, of course. Maybe he is only fueled up for the rest of this lap. David Alonso, who was also setting personal best sectors, comes up pit lane, and we'll wait and see whether Diogo Moreira is going to do the same. He'll be entering that final sequence of corners right about now. And Moreira does continue on, so let's hope he is fueled for the in-lap that's about to follow. Moreira goes up to provisional pole position anyway, and he might feel, hey, even if I run out of fuel, a 140.3 might not be beaten.
Yeah, that is going to be very hard to beat, as Livio Suppo, Alex Baumgartel from Calex look on in the Italtrans box. Moreira has has been absolutely class all weekend long, getting that box call again for the second lap in succession. We were saying earlier, Moreira is a bit of a star on flat track machinery, also on super motard machinery, and you do think that the layout of this track here is quite similar in the fact that it's quite narrow, quite tight, lots of slow chicanes and slow changes of direction that he would normally be experiencing on super motard machinery. You wonder whether that's just a reason why he's been so strong right from the off here this weekend.
Joe Roberts then with no time to his name at the moment. He's up behind Gonzalez and Ortola. Roberts, of course, navigated his way through qualifying 1 moment ago. Just the one new tyre available to him in this Q2 session, which he will be using right about now, so don't be too concerned, American fans, to see him down at the bottom of the leaderboard at the moment in 18th place. Perhaps the surprise is further down at the moment. David Alonso down in 14th place on a 41.3, and Adrian Huertas, who's shown so much potential so far this weekend for the Italtrans team. He's been quite a familiar presence inside the top 6, and at the moment Huertas set for 15th place on the grid. That would be the best qualifying in his Moto2 career so far, but I'd imagine he'd be pretty disappointed with that.
Yeah, absolutely. He was 6th at the end of play this morning. He was also 4th at the end of play yesterday. So Huertas has been having his best weekend of the season by some distance. It's not been a great qualifying session so far for one half of the Mark VDS box. Jake Dixon down in 17th as it stands. Jake has a new telemetry technician here this weekend in the Mark VDS box as they bid to try and get him more comfortable, saying yesterday that still having issues stopping the bike, issues very similar to what he's been experiencing right the way through this year. Still yet to find a cure for them, but 1 or 2 steps forward made yesterday. He has had 2 crashes this weekend though, so you wonder whether that has maybe affected his performance in this qualifying so far.
Conversation there involving Diogo Moreira, who's glancing at the tablet and perhaps looking at the areas he could still find some more time. There's Manu Gonzalez about to show him the areas he needs to improve. Gonzalez now into the heart of the chicane at turns 9 and 10, and right now through 11 to begin the 4th sector, out through 14 he is now. Just about getting our familiarity with the many chicanes that populate this Balaton Park circuit. Manu Gonzalez certainly knows where he is. He's into the final corner and looking to try and take pole position away from Diogo Moreira. This would be a pole position that sticks, of course, with no penalties. This weekend, Gonzalez does cut the gap to Diogo Moreira. He's the only rider within half a second of the Brazilian at the moment, which shows what kind of level these 2 riders are at. But it is still advantage Moreira.
Yeah, we were hyping up Gonzalez, and he has to bail out of the lap time there at turn number 2. We were hyping up a Gonzalez Connect fight last weekend, and that didn't quite come to pass. Maybe it will be another battle between 2 of the title contenders this weekend, certainly on the basis of practice and free practice as well as this Q2 session. It is very much Moreira v Gonzalez as it stands. What about Colin Bayer, who would be slightly disappointed, I feel, with 10th place where he currently sits. He's just 0.2 of a second off through split number 3. Bayer has been having his best Moto2 weekend of the season, of his career, by quite some distance so far. And can he round that off today with a place on the provisional 2nd row? Bayer goes up to 3rd. That is excellent stuff from the Dutchman.
Sorts himself nicely into that half-second gap between Gonzalez and Salach, who are now 2nd and 4th. So potentially a first Moto2 front row beckoning for Colin Bayer. 1.681. 3/10 of a second away still from Diogo Moreira, but Bayer now has a 1/4 second in his pocket to the chasing pack behind.
Yeah, and a shout out to all 4 riders that came through Q1. They've all managed to place themselves pretty well in the first part of this session. Baltus in 5th, Canet in 6th, got Drew Roberts in 10th, and Zonta van der Gerber, don't want to miss him out, in 7th as well. I think all 4 would be pretty content with their lap times as things stand.
Content with this one as well, the way it's unfolding. He could potentially get himself onto the front row of the grid, if not better here. Van den Gorberg, he's using David Alonso up ahead of him as a reference, and it's clearly proving rather fast for the Dutch teenager, who we have seen on the front row of the grid on a number of previous occasions, 3 to be exact, including the final Grand Prix of last season. That's the most recent instance of Van den Gorberg on the front row of the grid. Oh, he lost time sometime, half seconds worth in the final sector, so he drops to 7th, but RW are still smiling. Look where Yumi Sasaki's just got.
Yeah, Yumi Sasaki on course for a career best Moto2 qualifying as things stand. Brilliant stuff from the young Japanese rider who was using David Alonso's slipstream up ahead to perfection. Alonso himself went into 5th, which was impressive stuff, although that is now 6th as Canet improves into 4th. And we also have Alonso Lopez climbing into 7th.
A bit of a rescue mission that for Canet if he can secure 4th place. Vaya wants to consolidate his place in the front row, and he does that on a 1:40.567. He's within 2/10 now of Diogo Moreira. They're starting to believe down there at Red Bull KTM.
Yeah, tough first half of the season. There's no dressing it up. Colin Veyer didn't quite end the first part of 2025 where he wanted, but we are starting to see the real class of the Dutchman now. And just looking on our timing screens, on Van der Gerberg again going quickly, as is Jake Dixon through split number 1. Dixon has improved. He was 17th, he's gone up into 11th. He's looking to get himself inside the top 10 on this lap time as we go on board with Gonzalez.
Listen how closely you might be able to hear the excited commentary of Ziggo Sports somewhere in a nearby commentary box, because they've got one rider on the front row and the other is trying to take pole position here. Zonta van den Gorberg, who doesn't turn 20 until December of this year, despite all of his experience. He's up behind his teammate Ayubi Shisaki, who's on the second row of the grid. Van den Gorberg, though, could be about to move himself onto pole position. Didn't look like he got the best run there, though, for the final corner. Look at the gap that's opened up between himself and Sasaki, and it's cost him potentially pole. He does go into second place, though, which would be the best of his Moto2 career so far. 1:40.4 for Van den Gorberg. Look at Jake Dixon, though. He could be about to spring a Saturday surprise.
Yeah, look at Jake Dixon, look at Colin Veyer as well, and Dixon is right in the slipstream of Aaron Canet as they come round through these final left-handers. Turn 17, guns it out across the line. Canet, where does he go? He goes 7th, and Dixon manages to improve up into 4th.
So what has that done then for the likes of Canet? He's back to 7th then. Sasaki 8th from Ramirez and Holgado. Colin Veyer then across the line, misses out in that final sector. He goes into 5th place, 2nd and 5th for the Dutch duo. Just in between them is Gonzalez, Dixon. Alonso is in 6th place. Huertas has rescued a 10th place from his qualifying session, which is much more in line with his potential. Salac takes the checker flag in 9th place, and it now looks like it's all down to Manu Gonzalez. Diogo Moreira has taken the checker flag. He'll be watching the number 18 very closely.
Yeah, this isn't over, because Gonzalez is right in the hunt through sector number 2. He comes around turn 11 and guns out onto this little short spurt down to turn number 12. Joe Roberts is actually going pretty quickly up ahead. He's down in 18th is Roberts, less than a second off, and Gonzalez is using him as a pretty good gauge up ahead.
Still some personal best coming in from Ramirez, from Holgado, from Canet, who's not given up just yet either. What a thrilling conclusion we're having here to this qualifying session. Gonzalez needs something truly miraculous in the final sector, and we know how good Moreira's through there. He just might have just secured and pole at the expense of Van den Gorberg, who looked like he was about to take it away from him heading to that final sector. Roberts onto the 4th row then in 12th place. Holgado should move up from 13th onto the second row in 6th place. Holgado just then gets ahead of his teammate Alonso on 1:40.655. Canet then is approaching the final corner now. He's now into the final left-hander. Turn 16 Sig negotiated, now turn 17. Canet at the moment a couple of rows behind his two key championship rivals. He at least gets himself onto row 2 in 6th on a 1:40.6. Shout out, you have to say, once again to the Dutch duo of Veyer 5th, Van den Gorberg 2nd, equaling the best qualifying of his Moto2 career so far. But after that hat-trick of pole positions earlier on in the season and something of a quiet spell, it's pole number 4 for Diogo Moreira.
Yeah, brilliant stuff for Diogo Moreira. He's been in the headlines in the lead up to this weekend. And it does sound as though he is off to MotoGP and off to MotoGP with LCR Honda. And what better way to celebrate the signing of that contract, a multi-year deal, we're led to believe, with HRC, than securing pole position again. And really staking his claim for a spot in this championship fight. It looked like, might have been lost after the Grand Prix of Czechia when he had his second non-score on the bounce. But after victory in Austria and another really strong weekend here, he is looking capable of taking the fight to both Gonzalez and Canet in the championship ahead. But not even Moreira, I think, was the star of today. That is Zonta van der Gerberg, who came through Q1 to put it in the middle of the second row. Brilliant, brilliant stuff from the Dutchman.
Well, you're in a position where you're placed place in Moto2 for next season is far from secure. That's one way to showcase your talents. Just half a tenth away from what would have been a monumental upset of pole position. But it is second. Was on to Van den Gorberg, matching the second he took on the grid at Otegi last year. We're generally seeing not the sharp-ended, rain-affected qualifying sessions, but this one was certainly not weather assisted.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't, and you would have to say that is a job done for Aaron Canet. 21st at the end of play yesterday, and he has managed to bring this weekend back from the brink. 6th place. Okay, he is a row behind his two championship contenders, but 6th place I think is a really fine rescue job from the Spaniards.
For all the speculation surrounding him, it hasn't bothered Diogo Moreira one iota. Pole position number 4 in Moto2 for the Brazilian. Zonta van den Gorberg will take 2nd place alongside him on the grid. Perhaps we might see that shootout between the title contenders, all 3 of them on the front 2 rows of the grid. Gonzalez 3rd, Aaron Canet via Q1 up into 6th place. Set up beautifully, isn't it, for the Moto2 battle tomorrow, with Diogo Moreira on pole position, fastest on Friday and now fastest on Saturday. Van den Gorberg at equal career best 2nd. Manu Gonzalez does complete the front row in 3rd place, a 10th front row qualifying of the season. Dixon 4th from Via and Canet, Holgado, Alonso and Sasaki on a pretty youthful 3rd row. Salach 10th from Ramirez, Puertas, Roberts, Lopez and Bautas to Q1, but shuffled back to 15th in the end. Ifan Guevara 16th ahead of Alex Escridge and Ivan Ortola. So Diogo Moreira takes pole position for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Balaton Park sees its first taste of the Tissot Sprint in just a moment.
The 14th Sprint Saturday in a record-breaking 2025 campaign comes on the new Balaton Park circuit, which lies 80 kilometres from Budapest. Close to the emerald waters and awe-inspiring vistas of Lake Balaton, the track becomes a 75th different venue to host the greatest motorsport show on earth. The hunt is on for gold medal glory in Hungary. It's time for MotoGP. So Balaton Park in Western Hungary hosts us the 3rd ever Hungarian Grand Prix. We were in this part of the world in 1990 and in 1992 then at the Hungaroring. The Balaton Park is tight, it's technical, just 4.08 kilometres in length, 2.53 miles. Packed into that tight layout are 17 corners, 7 of them right, 10 of them left, including plenty of hard braking zones, which you hope will provide some overtaking opportunities around this just over 4 kilometre layout. Chicanes a complete lap into 15 and 16. Turn 1, turn 5 and 15 are the most demanding braking points on the track. Overtaking hotspots potentially to 1. Well, 6 days ago now in the Styria Mountains at the Red Bull Grand Prix of Austria it was. Marco Bezzecchi, who made the front running on the factory Aprilia out of Q1 and into pole position. Further back, Fermin Aldeguer on the Gresini Ducati was charging his way through the pack. Eventually, he would take a sensational 2nd. Marco Bezzecchi went toe-to-toe, didn't he, with runaway world champs leader Marc Marquez. Before this was the key move. Late on up the hill into turn 1. A move that Marquez made and was never to be passed once again. Aldeguer's sensational surge through the pack continued. He picked off Bezzecchi late on the 2nd place. But for the 6th race in succession, it was a sprint and Grand Prix double success for 32-year-old Marc Marquez. It all means he comes to Hungary for the first time as we break new battleground here at Balaton Park with a 142-point lead in the World Championship. So many successful Sprint Saturdays already in the books as far as the Ducati Livo Team Star is concerned in 2025. Well, he's having another one so far because he was on pole position our first visit to Balaton Park, and the story of 2025 and one ride's domination continues because a 136.518 has put Mark on pole position for the 8th time this year, 74th time in the Premier class. And he did it in some style, nearly 0.3 of a second ahead of Marco Bezzecchi, one of two Italians on the front row of the grid, and two Italians about to work already exceptionally hard to get themselves into prime position for this 13-lap sprint coming your way in just under half an hour's time, because Marco Bezzecchi on the factory Aprilia second on the grid, and Fabio Di Gianantonio one place behind him on just his 4th front row start in MotoGP. Those two had to come through Q1 this morning, a Q1 which is worth pointing out did feature our most recent world champions in MotoGP, Jorge Martin, the factory Aprilia rider, working his way back to full confidence and full fitness. Martin 17th place on the grid, his lowest ever grid position in the MotoGP World Championship. And the nightmare rolls on for poor old Pecco Bagnaia. Marc Marquez's beleaguered factory Ducati teammate, while once again Marc steamrolling towards what was his 102nd career pole position. Pecco Bagnaia is having a terrible time here in Hungary. He's going to start the sprint 15th place on the grid, 13th for the main Grand Prix tomorrow. That's only because Jack Mir and Alex Marquez have got grid penalties for the 26th lap Michelin Grand Prix of Hungary. Bagnaia's worst qualifying in 69 Grand Prix, right on cue, since he was 25th at the 2022 Portuguese Grand Prix. In his previous 119 MotoGP starts, the 28-year-old Italian has only started lower than 15th on the grid 8 times. All at sea, struggling for confidence and form with the front end in particular on that factory Ducati. Matt Burton, Lewis Sotheby in the commentary box with Jack Appleyard down in pit lane as we wait to see if Marc Marquez and Ducati can continue their unrivaled domination of Sprint Saturdays. As we mentioned, Marc's 8th pole position of the season, looking for a 7th successive double victory. Incredible recent record by Marc. He's won 12 of 13 sprints so far this season. Ducati undefeated in our last 27 sprints. Lewis, do we think anybody's got a chance of beating Marc and Ducati here on our first racing experience at Balaton Park?
I have to say, those chances went down slightly in qualifying earlier on. Marc Marquez so good at every circuit, so good particularly at new circuits, and it also helps that they are anti-clockwise. Marc Marquez particularly strong around left-handers. We expected the main challenge in qualifying earlier on today to come from Pedro Acosta after a high-speed crash at turn 8. That did not materialise for the 37. He's back on the 3rd row of the grid, and he's got to navigate his way through a lot of traffic. He's to give Marc Marquez any trouble today or tomorrow. You do feel, though, the start all important. If anyone's going to beat Marc Marquez, you're going to need to get ahead of him early on.
Yeah, victory in the sprint in Austria last weekend was Marc's 13th on the new sprint era. He's now just 3 away from matching Jorge Martin's tally of 16 sprint victories, which is the most we've seen so far. Marco Bezzecchi has had to rebound from tough Fridays in both Austria and here in Hungary into Q2 in both of our most recent weekends, but he did a stellar job to make sure he's in the hunt for glory in this sprint. He was the first rider in history to set a 136 lap around this Balaton Park circuit, and another 36, a 136.808, which was slightly slower than his benchmark in Q1, was still good enough to put Bears on the front row of the grid. Back-to-back front rows for Bezzecchi for the first time in nearly 2 years since San Marino and India 2023.
Starting to wonder whether Marco Bezzecchi chooses to go through qualifying long. It seems to be something of a good omen for him, doesn't it? But this was not a good start to qualifying too early on for Pedro Acosta. Around 180 kilometres an hour, is it, as he comes through just shy of that through turn number 8. You can see the front end chatting away for an age, and it's around this point that he knows The bike has gone 190 k's into turn 8. The bike went for its own journey and ended up in several pieces. Fortunately, the rider still in one piece, but the damage could not be repaired to his qualifying prospects.
Yeah, all weekend it has looked like going to be a shootout between Acosta and Marc Marquez for glory here this weekend. That was a big one, wasn't it, as far as Pedro Acosta's concerned? His second big off of the weekend here in Hungary. He had a real nasty off-throttle high side yesterday at turn 2. That really rattled his cage as well. He's got it all on now. He's got big work on, hasn't he, now? Acosta on such a narrow racing line, one line through so much of this Balaton Park circuit. We get through from that third right of the grid. It'll be interesting to see how he tackles this one over the 13 laps. And now the Fermin Aldeguer, we know he's got great race pace once again. He's 8th on the grid. Alex Marquez starting this sprint in 11th, his worst qualifying of the season. It will get worse tomorrow, of course, when he gets pushed back down to 14th place. Let's get the thoughts of the boss, Michele Massini, who's with Jack.
Oh, pit lane opens. Obviously, it surprised Michele to see Alex 11th in qualifying. Obviously, it's going to be a row further back tomorrow. Could you just explain what happened in qualifying?
Yeah, that's not the position that we wanted to start it, but happened that we don't find the right feeling, especially with the new soft rear that moving a lot, the bike coming nervous, but was like this anyway. We try to make a reset and try to come back as much as possible.
For me, just very quickly before he heads out, looked very strong yesterday, but again, I'm sure was hoping for at least those front couple of rows of the grid to give himself a great chance. Can he still come through from there?
Yeah, unfortunately for 110 we have off from the second row, but anyway, we show a good pace for the races, so I hope that later the turn 1, turn 2, we try to recover some position to make a good result.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to Michele Massini, thanks as always to Jack. Only twice in our opening 13 sprints as Alex Marquez finished top the podium. That was in the Saxon Ring and in Brno, a whole bunch of second place finishes. Well, every other sprint bar his victory at Silverstone has seen Alex finish. Moment that MotoGP fans scattered all around Hungary have waited so long for. They are about to see MotoGP bikes